Yo, in this video I'll be ranking lifting accessories and lifting gear. I'll be ranking them from non-negotiable, even though you technically don't need any of these because they're just accessories. And I'll be going down all the way to mostly useless, because none of them are completely useless, but it's not worth the hassle to get all of them. So starting off, we have the lifting belt. This one is a fan favorite in many gyms. I own one and you probably also own one, but I don't use mine, because I don't need it, and that's gonna be the theme for this video. If you don't need something, don't use it. The lifting belt helps you stay more tight when you're doing a compound movement, like a bench, deadlift or a squat, and you're able to brace harder with it, because you create intra-abdominal pressure. In short, it does help you push more weight, yes. But in my opinion, it's not worth it to get a belt just because you can bench an extra 20 pounds with it, because you'd hit that number anyways if you just progress normally. The belt can be great, but many people rely on it too much. And some people can't even squat without having a belt. And if you rely on things like this, well, what will you do when you don't have the belt with you? If you forget it one day, what will you do? Will you just skip your squats? If you do use it though, I encourage you to have a day where you don't use it in your program. So if on one day you do squats with a belt, have a day where you don't squat with a belt. And also don't use it on your warm-up sets, because you don't need it. So for that, I'll put this one in the great category. It's obviously not a non-negotiable. It only becomes that when you skip your belt training and you only do exercises with it on. But I know that some people feel more confident when they have it, because it feels like it spares their lower back, which it does to some extent. But a belt will never save you from bad form. If you're using bad form with a belt on, yes, you might not get snapped up right away, but you'll definitely get snapped up still. It will just take longer, so still prioritize form. And by the way, one last thing, don't use a belt when you're doing bicep curls or something like that. Don't walk around with a belt on in the gym like those people, you know who they are, and only use it on compounds. And after a set, take it off. You shouldn't feel comfortable having it on. If it feels comfortable, then it's not tight enough. Now another type of belt that serves a different purpose is the dip belt, or a pull-up belt. Is the same thing. People use this type of belt to hang weights of it, so that they can weight their pull-ups and dips and other body weight movements. Because at some point you get too strong for pull-ups or push-ups and stuff like that. And you have two choices. You either ditch that movement and start doing pull-downs, which to me are worse than pull-ups, or you get a pull-up belt. And you can kind of get away with having a dumbbell in between your legs and stuff like that, but at some point you can't do that anymore. Past 45 pounds it becomes way too awkward to have a dumbbell in between your legs. So for that reason this would be a non-negotiable, if you're strong enough to do weighted pull-ups. If you're not strong enough, obviously you don't need it, just do bodyweight pull-ups. But this is just something you need if you want to do weight pull-ups. There are ways to bypass it for a while, like I said, with having a dumbbell in between your legs, or even filling up a backpack, but getting a pull-up belt will always be the best option, unless you're trying to do something like weighted push-ups, and in that case a backpack would work better, or a weighted vest, which is not on this tier list, but I guess it could be a non-negotiable as well. But with a weighted vest, you're still restricted by the vest's weight, so you gotta keep that in mind if you wanna buy a weighted vest. But again, a pull-up belt is just more convenient. The next accessory I have here is a slingshot. This one makes the bottom of the bench press easier, or the bottom of the dip if you use it for a dip. Because it's just like a slingshot. It helps you push when it's the most stretched, and at the top it doesn't really help you at all. So with it, obviously you'll be able to bench more weight, but that doesn't really translate into muscle necessarily, unlike the belt, which helps you recruit more muscle since you're more stable. The slingshot is just an artificial thing that takes the weight off a little bit, similar to a banded pull-up or an assisted pull-up. So obviously you shouldn't try to bench the weight that you can with a slingshot without the slingshot, because you won't be able to. Now for why people use this? Well, it helps you recruit more triceps, because naturally when you make the bottom of the movement easier, the top will be harder. So if you use a slingshot, you'll grind more at the top of the bench, and that's where you mostly use just triceps. But if you want to use more triceps, why don't you just do a close grip bench? It doesn't really make sense to me to use a slingshot for this, especially because you'll accumulate more fatigue since you're using more weight. And another thing that the slingshot does is that it helps you feel more confident with higher weight. This is similar to when people use a lot of weight to just unrack and re-rack a squat, to feel more confident holding more weight, even though they don't even squat it. But yeah, slingshot is mostly for powerlifters. If you're trying to gain muscle, I don't really see the point in using a slingshot. You're better off doing regular post bench press. Especially since the slingshot makes your chest work less. Because like I said, it makes the bottom, which is the most important part of the movement, easier. So for that I put it in can help some people. And as in some people, I mean powerlifters. If you're a bodybuilder, I don't really see the point in using it. And the next one is pretty similar. This one is chains. Just like with the slingshot, it makes the bottom easier than the top harder. Because at the top you'll have the most amount of actual chain if you know what I mean. And the bottom will be easier because part of the chain will be on the ground. This one to me is a little bit better than the slingshot though, because the transition from hard to easy is a lot smoother, unlike the slingshot which is a bit abrupt. But I don't really know, I only used the slingshot once and I didn't really like it. And I trained with chains multiple times. But this one, even though it's a bit better, I still don't think it's all that good. So I'll put it in can help some people. It's a decent accessory if you're a bench specialist, but other than that I don't really see the point in using it. Especially because if your gym doesn't have chains, it's gonna be very hard to get them in your bag. It's gonna make your gym bag very heavy if you decide to purchase them. So I guess then a slingshot could be better, but it can go both ways really. Now the next one is shoes. And I know some people might say that this is not a gym accessory, but it is. And by that I don't mean to have any kind of shoes. It's obvious that you wanna go to the gym with shoes on, right? I hope you do. But I mean that you shouldn't bring those cushiony foam shoes that you usually see runners with. You need to have flat shoes to be as close to the ground as possible whenever you're deadlifting, squatting, or even benching. Because having cushiony shoes can put you off balance really fast. And you can get injured really bad, especially if you squat a lot in them. And at some point you might slip and that won't end well. That's why people who don't have this type of flat shoes usually squat barefoot. But yeah, getting a pair of flat shoes for your gym shouldn't be that big of an investment. And most people have a pair of flat shoes in their house anyways. So bring them to the gym whenever you're squatting, deadlifting, but to be honest, they can help you on any lifts. So yeah, to me this one is a non-negotiable. Because you're risking a lot if you squat in shoes that have a lot of cushion in them. But if you don't want to get flat shoes for some reason, squat and deadlift barefoot. And now if you're really into lifting shoes, you can get some Olympic weightlifting shoes. But these ones are very specific. They're only good for squatting, because they're made for squatting. If you have trouble going ass to grass on your squats, this shoe can help you, because it's basically the same thing as putting plates under your heels. It helps you go deeper, which will make you lift less, yes, but it will also make your legs bigger, because it helps you not hinge as much, and it reduces your ankle mobility. That's why people put plates under their heels. But plates are usually very short, and they don't help that much. They still do, don't get me wrong, you should still use plates under your heels if you can buy these shoes, but these shoes are designed for that. And they have an increased heel elevation, and they're also very stable since they're very heavy. They're like rocks on your feet, but that's good for squatting. So these shoes are pretty good if you can afford them. If not, then who cares? Just use some plates under your heels. But if you really care about getting bigger legs and want to squeeze as much gains as possible, then these shoes can help you with that. But I want to emphasize that these are only squatting shoes. You can't deadlift with them. And bench pressing can be quite awkward, so you'll have to change them during the workout. You still need to have flat shoes after. So they're not the most convenient, but they're pretty much the best option when it comes to squatting. So for that I'll put them in the great tier. Because if you want to get the most out of your leg gains, these shoes are for you. Next up we have knee wraps, wrist wraps, and elbow wraps. You wrap these around your joints, like I said, which makes you stronger. Because you reinforce your joints, it's like you're artificially making them bigger. Or rather, it's like having more artificial fat around your joints. This is the same reason why fat people are stronger. Because they have more fat around their joints, which makes them push harder. That's why just bulking will increase your bench press. Or at least that's one of the reasons. Of course, other factors come into play, but this is one of the factors. This one is quite similar to the lifting belt, because it protects you a little bit and it makes you stronger. Of course, artificially, that's not your real strength. But yeah, it has the same pros and cons as the belt, basically. So if you wear a belt, you might want to look into those. And if you don't, you probably don't. People who use reps for the most part also have a belt, and people who don't use a belt for the most part don't use reps. But there are people who use a belt and don't have reps. They do promote longevity though, and having something that supports your tendons can never be bad. Unlike the belt, which does support your lower back, but it creates more stress in other areas. Reps don't really create stress in other areas. But they're still not non-negotiable. You can build an amazing physique without ever using any kind of reps. But they're a bit better than a belt in my opinion. Just by a small margin. Next up is gloves. I made a video about how useless gloves are and how dangerous they can be, so I'll put this in the mostly useless tier. It helps you with your grip strength a bit, just a bit, unlike straps, which I'll talk about in a bit. And gloves do help you not have calluses and things like that, but that's basically everything good they do. The bad thing with them is that weight can slip from your hands and they tend to smell because you get sweaty. Most people say that if you wear gloves you're a pussy and things like that. I don't really care about that type of stuff, but gloves are just useless. The only thing that they help with is calluses. But for that, just get a cream. Okay, next one is straps. And this one is an easy S tier. I always promote using straps on any lift where your grip gives out first. Any kind of back movement, any kind of deadlift. If your grip is limiting you from training your legs or training your back, you need to use straps. Simple as that. In the beginning, you probably don't need them because you're not strong enough to have a strong back, so that your straps actually make sense. But when your back becomes stronger than your grip, you should get straps. And yeah, you'll get a bit less forearm gains, but you should train your forearms directly anyways. So that argument isn't that valid. But this to me is the most important gym accessory. If you don't want to get any of these, just get straps. Straps are the only accessory where I can't see why you wouldn't get them. They make your life easier, and I would go as far as to say that you can't really get an amazing back without having straps. Unless you only do pullovers and chin-ups and stuff like that. But if you have a balanced routine with rows and deadlifts, you need straps. And if you say that you don't need them, then you're probably not advanced enough to need them, or you have a serious imbalance, or you're like a mountain climber and have an insane grip strength. But most people will benefit from straps. I've put so many people onto these and they've always thanked me because they couldn't believe how they could train their back without them. That's how powerful straps are. Next up we have chalk. Now take what I say here with a grain of salt. I barely know anything about chalk, I'm gonna be honest. I've never used chalk in my life. But from what I've seen, it's basically the same as straps. They help with your grip strength. But it seems that people who use chalk are mostly just powerlifters. And very strong powerlifters at that. You don't see regular lifters coming in with chalk. They use straps. But the thing I don't like about chalk is that it makes everything you touch dirty. So it's pretty annoying for yourself and for the people around you. I feel like chalk is a very try-hard thing. Like, you're only gonna use chalk if you're in a competition or something to test your 1 rep max. You don't use chalk on a regular day. That's how I feel. I might be wrong though, I don't know. But if it does the same thing as straps, and I believe it does, then why don't you just use straps? They're much more convenient. I guess if you really don't want to use straps for some reason, you can use chalk though. But I'll put chalk in can help some people. Because I don't know why you would use chalk instead of straps. Maybe somebody can tell me in the comments, but I don't know. Now sticking with the theme for forearms, we have a Captain of Crush. This is a decent tool to build your forearms. It's not the best thing you can do, it's not the worst, just kinda there. But there's not really point in buying it. It does train a specific part of the forearm, but you're better off just doing finger curls. That will get you much more impressive forearms than this. But this is a cool show-off thing. Like, it's more of a party trick to me. Like, look, I can close this thing that weighs 200 pounds, you know? It's not that beneficial for hypertrophy. But it's pretty good, especially if you're a forearm specialist and you want to get the biggest forearms you can, want to target every single angle, then yeah, you can use this. Wait, I meant to put it in can help some people, not pretty good. I mean, it is pretty good for the people it can help, but most people are better off doing supinated and pronated finger curls. Now another forearm accessory is fat grips. You put these on a bar or on a dumbbell, and it makes it harder to grip that barbell or dumbbell. Because unless you have insanely big hands, you won't be able to grip it fully. And this can help you recruit your forearms more on things like bicep curls and hammer curls or pull-ups. It doesn't really make sense to use this on something like a deadlift because you would use straps on it anyways, you know? You put it on things that you feel that are too easy on your forearms. So like I said, for example, a bicep curl and a pull-up. Those are basically the only things where you can put these things. Don't put it on presses though, it doesn't make sense. Because you still want gravity to pull it down. But when you put these on, you won't necessarily make a forearm movement out of those movements. It's just that your forearms will work more, which some people will like and some people won't like. I personally don't like using them on a pull-up, because pull-ups are pretty hard on my forearms anyway. I don't need to use fat grips, but on a curl they're pretty nice, because you're getting a jack of all trades movement. You're not only hitting your biceps, but now you're also hitting your forearms quite a bit. I still do finger curls though, another forearm movements like that. But using these over time can have compounding effects and you'll get bigger forearms over time using them. So I think fat grips are pretty good. The next one is a towel. And no, I don't mean a towel to put it on your bench to not sweat on it. If you don't care about that, don't get a towel. I don't care either. I do wipe the bench after though. But the towel can also help you grow the forearms. Towel grip pull-ups are pretty cool. They're very hard, but they're pretty cool. But what I really like is hammer towel curls. And I know this might seem like a TikTok movement because it's pretty obscure, but it's a great movement, especially if you go a step further and do it on a preacher bench. You'll see how great this movement is. Because you can't really get the same movement with a normal hammer curl. Because by not having the weight directly in your hand, but by having it dangle a little bit below your hand, you get a very unique sensation. I'd say it's pretty similar to a hammer cable curl, but this one you can do on a preacher bench. And you can also do it one hand at a time, and you can do it crossbody. It might seem pretty weird, but if you like training your forearms and your biceps, you should definitely give this movement a go. Yeah, it's not a very conventional movement, but it feels great, and it will target your forearms more than a traditional hammer curl. This one, just like the fat grips, is pretty good. And everybody has a towel. You don't need to go anywhere to buy this. You can just get an old towel. The next one is an arm blaster. And just like choke, I've never used this. But I can see it being pretty cool because it makes your curls very strict. It eliminates cheating basically. It's just that it's pretty impractical to get it in your gym bag. If your gym doesn't have one, then I don't know how you could use this. It's very big to put it in your gym bag. Though if you have the space, I'd say definitely give this a try, because it can help your biceps a lot. Plus your arms look very cool when you're using it. You look way bigger when you have it on. I haven't tried it though, but I'd still say it's a pretty good movement, because it's obvious what it does. And if you have a hard time not cheating, when you don't want to cheat, this will help you with that. It will basically eliminate all cheating. Though cheating does have its benefits sometimes. And I'd say if you do want to try this accessory, always have some movements where you also do it freely. You know, just like with the belt. Don't get attached to one piece of equipment, unless it's one of those non-negotiable ones. Next up we have a squat pad. This one to me is pretty bad on squats, because yeah, the weight hurts and stuff, but this increases the chances of it slipping away, you know. I've had my time using this as well, and sometimes it came off while I was squatting. And that can be pretty dangerous depending on the situation, you know. Plus you get used to the bar hurting. After some time you won't feel it. It's not like there's anything wrong with having it, really. But you should minimize your gym bag and your gym accessories. To me, the only time when the squat pad is good is when you hip thrust, not when you actually squat. Because the bar hurts much more when you hip thrust, and you don't get used to that. But if you don't have hip thrusts in your routine, then you shouldn't have this either. And even if you do hip thrust, you can get away with a towel. You don't have to buy a squat pad. So I'd say this is a mostly useless piece of equipment as well. Now the next one is smelling salt. This is basically like legal cocaine. I haven't tried this one either, but from what I've seen is that you smell this thing and after that you get a boost in energy and adrenaline, because it smells very bad, I suppose, or it's just got a strong smell. But this, just like with the chalk, I think it's pretty dumb to use this all the time. You probably also get used to it, so you wouldn't want to use it all the time. It's more of a thing that you use it when you want to hit a PR for a competition or something like that. I don't think you should smell a smelling salt on a regular Wednesday where you do your 5x5 on squats. You know, I feel like it's something wrong with your routine if you need to get amped up for your squat session. Lifting is just something you do, you know. You don't have to get amped up for it. In my opinion, it's just a routine, you know. You can still listen to PR songs and things like that, but I think that smelling salts are a bit much. So for that, I'll put this in the can help some people, because it obviously still helps. Otherwise, people wouldn't use it. But I just think that you shouldn't use it too often, or at all, if you're not a powerlifter. Okay, I had to stop my recording because my mic was fucking up, but now I'm gonna re-record this part. So the next gym accessory is the neck harness. This one is used mostly for training the back of your neck, because at some point when you're doing your regular neck extensions, you become way too strong to do them comfortably, and at some point it's pretty much impossible to do them comfortably. So you have to find a solution. You either do more reps or you buy a harness. A harness can also help with the front of your neck, but it's mostly used for the back of the neck. I know that many people would say that training your neck is stupid. Most of you probably don't train your neck. But in my opinion, the neck is one of the most important muscles, both for aesthetic purposes and health purposes. So I feel that everybody should train their neck. But not everybody needs a neck harness, that's true. Especially at the beginning. This is more for advanced neck trainees. But it's quite a useful tool, because like I said, when you get too strong, you kind of need it. So for that I'll put it in pretty good. It would be in the great tier, but it can become quite costly to buy a neck harness. And I wouldn't really go cheap on it, because if the neck harness snaps, you're kind of fucked. So if you decide to buy a neck harness, either buy a really good one or don't buy one at all. That's how I view it. Now next up we have water. Obviously this one would be a non-negotiable. You need to bring your water to the gym. I think most of you do, but I'd figure I put it here. Water is the most important thing on this list, because you can't really get in a good workout if you don't drink throughout it, unless you have a very short workout. But the way to experience more benefits from your water is to try this recipe that Steve Reeves used to do, which is adding a pinch of salt to it, some honey and some lemon juice. That way you'll feel more energetic throughout your workout, your pump will be better, and you might even be able to lift more. It's worth giving it a try just because Steve Reeves used to do it. That was his main go-to drink for working out. Plus it's a quite easy recipe, you only need 3 ingredients and you can make it very quick. And it's a lot better than things like pre-workouts and stuff like that, which have a lot of chemicals in them. This is all natural. But of course this is not a non-negotiable. It's not like you can't work out without it. But I think it's a good idea to try something like this at least. So I'll put this at the top of the grade tier. Thank you for watching and I'll see you soon.